Hi everyone, welcome to Talks at Google. My name is Dana Han-Klein, and today it is my pleasure to welcome Andrew Garfield for 99 Homes. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So do you mind telling us a little bit about the film?
Yeah, sure. It's the 99 in the title is an allusion to the 99%. I think that was the intention of the filmmaker Ramin Bahrani. Anyway, and it basically follows the Nash family and the process of being evicted from their family home that goes back a few generations, and the man of the house, which is somehow this guy, trying to get his family back into their homestead, and the measures that he is forced to take to do that. It's we were talking earlier, and it's a true story, weirdly. You know, it's not based on any specific person. You know, Dennis Nash doesn't exist in a literal sense, but I think in a symbolic sense, he is a representative, him and his family are representative of what so many different families in our country, I say our country, despite my accent, which kind of betrays the fact that I was born here in California, in Los Angeles, so don't challenge. So it representative of a struggle that feels pretty endemic in our culture right now. This disparity that we're experiencing between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. And I hope, the hope is that this film is going to be a small step in the conversation back towards the knowledge, the understanding, or just remembering, because I think the internet and what you guys do here at Google is the perfect example of connectivity. Well, not perfect, an imperfect example of connectivity, which we'll maybe get into later. But just to remember that we all really need each other, and the system, the current economic, social system that has been created, and the culture that's been created by us, that we're all willfully participating in on a moment-to-moment basis, is a system that is setting people against each other constantly. And what Dennis Nash experiences, the character that I play, is that the only way that he can put food in his child's mouth and put a roof over his kid's head is if he betrays his fellow man, if he tramples on his fellow man. That's a messed up system that I don't like being a part of. I don't like participating in that culture. And like we were talking about, we got to know each other a little bit earlier, and she's really lovely from my perspective. Well, that's very well. We both have to say that for the purposes of the cameras. He's
terrible.
Yeah, you too. But we are actively participating by going, well, that's just the way the world works at this point, isn't it? Yeah, the haves have and the have-nots don't, and the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. What can I do about it? Well,
or sometimes
there's plenty we can do about it.
Sometimes worse, that we're not even participating. We don't know that there's anything to participate in.
Yes.
And therefore, is it sort of guilt by ignorance?
You know what? I love that you said that, because it makes me think of different oppressive regimes that we know throughout history. Like the one that comes to me because of my Jewish ancestry is the Nazi regime. I think we all know what that regime was about. And it was very clearly an oppressive, it was like, you guys are subhuman, so we're going to exterminate you. We're just going to do it, and we're not sorry. The regime that we're under now, as you just said, there's this insidious thing where we don't know we are being tricked. We don't know we are being treated as commodities, or as just be a good consumer and shut the hell up. So there's something even more twisted, because it's not like we're going to burn you in a gas chamber, or not burn you. We're going to gas you and then just burn your body. We're actually going to slowly starve you and not allow you to access the basic human needs that you have.
Or not only that, but we're going to put this kind of very tempting lifestyle way to achieve these needs and then just kind of yank it out.
The American lie. I mean, the American dream.
No, I mean, as you said, there's no one Dennis Nash, but there are thousands of Dennis Nash families or Nash families. And this is kind of, for me, it was one of the first times where it's like, yes, you realize that this is going on at a basic level. You read the news, you see whatever, but this was a way to connect with it that I was like, I was so upset and stressed watching this film. And I mean that as a compliment in that I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I would do in this scenario. And I don't know what would happen. There was just like such a desperation to the situation they were in that was just so frustrating to watch as an audience member and be like, what? So for you, what was that like?
Well, you kind of go, yeah, so what are the options, right? It's like either my son starves and I starve and my mother starves, or I become a very active participant in the problem and I start evicting people myself and justify it. You know, that's one option. And then you kind of go, well, in order to do that, I have to not feel. In order to do that, I have to not look people in the eye, because if I look you in the eye as I'm kicking you out of your house, I'm not going to be able to live with myself. If I do happen to catch a glimpse of your eye while I'm doing this, I've got to go home and I've got to have at least a 6-pack of beer and a massive joint and check the hell out. I've got to numb myself out in order to go back and do it again tomorrow. So that was part of my experience, and I got to go to Florida and hang out with a bunch of families and people that this has happened to, and they are all so devastated and hurt and betrayed. They've been betrayed by their country. They've been betrayed by the land that promised them certain basic needs. And so many of them have alcohol problems and drug problems and have had their children taken away to foster care, and their lives have literally been
destroyed?
Yeah, from the inside out. And I got a text from my friend Rick today, who's one of the guys that I met with, so it still feels very close to me, and I'm so glad that he did, because it's given me that remembering how the look in these guys' eyes, the betrayal, the anger, the rage that leads to this self-destruction is something that I hope, I'm an actor, I'm an actor. I'm not going and putting people in homes and building homes and whatever. I'm an actor. That's what I'm here to do. So I hope that this story is a small little step in the conversation back towards real interconnectedness, real community, not Facebook community, but like being with each other and really like remembering we need each other in a real way. And so, yeah.
I think there's definitely a sense of kind of humanity to the story that it reminds you, and there's a ton of moral ambiguity, because as you said, your character goes through this thing where it's like, well, wouldn't we all do the same for our families? If you were given the choice to save your family at the expense of other people, or just be one of them, I think a lot of people would do what he did and kind of compromise their original moral compass. And I don't think that like necessarily the character starts out as a greedy person, it's just like self-preservation. But there is kind of an arc where it's like, well, how much is just taking care of yourself and how much is going above and beyond?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that there's a temptation to, once we're kind of at a certain level, just be like, oh, well, what's on the other side of that? What's the 1%? What are they up to?
Exactly, yeah. I think temptation's the perfect word, yeah.
And so I think for me watching the film, it was like you did this, you had this really tough task where it's like, well, we want to like you, but you're also doing things.
You're being an asshole. Stop being an asshole so we can like you. Yeah.
So I mean, was that challenging for you to kind of keep this, hold on to this kind of core, or did you go, that's where this needs to go, and I need to kind of let go of that?
Gosh, wow. How do I answer that? I mean, we betray ourselves every day. I betray myself every day. I do things that are not in line with who I am every day. So it's not hard to get into, in small ways, I'm not saying like I'm gonna go, I haven't murdered anyone, in the last 32 years of my life, but
good track record. Good track record.
but you know, like in small ways, I compromise myself. I do things that are not coming from that deep, integrated place, and because I'm asked to, in order to be liked, in order to be socially acceptable, in order to be a good boy, in order to be successful, in order to be accepted. And I think that's, right now anyway, how I'm kind of relating to where Dennis is, and that question of what do we do? What would we do? What would we do in that situation? And maybe we are already in that situation, or have been, and we have made certain choices that have compromised something deeper and have compromised someone else in a negative way that maybe we've been ignoring and not looking at. And that's the other thing about this film is it's a part of society and it's a part of our culture that we really don't want to look at, of course, because who wants to look at people in pain? It's really hard to do, because then we feel empathy and then we feel sad, and no one likes to feel sad, although after seeing Inside Out, I hope people start to realize the value of sadness and the beauty of sadness. I certainly was reminded of it. These people saw Inside Out. These people haven't seen Inside Out. So then in feeling all those emotions and feeling that empathy and that connectedness to your fellow man, then you go, oh shit, I've got to do something. Fuck, that means I've got to quit my job at Google. That means I've got to stop being online all the time. That means I've got to live my life in a deeper way. How am I going to do that? And that's this is just me I'm talking about. I don't work at Google, but it's a challenge. It's always a challenge to, and it's scary. It's scary to look at. So, but hopefully again, this film is something that will outrage people, like it outraged you. I think, it made you incredibly angry that man can be so inhumane to their fellow men.
Yeah.
So I hope that other people, I hope everyone sees it, just in case they feel the same way and they go, wait a minute, how can I do something different?
I think it's definitely a conversation opener. It's a reminder, because it is something that, again, we know what's going on, but it's not in your face anymore necessarily. And it's also I don't think there's necessarily an understanding of how it happened. We all know it happened vaguely, but it's like, oh, this is how it actually happens, and this is how it affects just somebody who's not trying to buy $1 million mansion or whatever. It's just somebody trying to keep their home.
That's right.
So what brought you to the project? Because it's clearly a very passionate role for you, and it's a tough one. It's a challenging one. But
I think all these things that you're saying, I feel uncomfortable in our culture. I don't feel happy, joyous, and free. Let's put it that way. Unless I'm seeing a Pixar movie. I find it hard to seek out that very soulful experience in the culture as it stands. It doesn't feel very common when it comes to the center of our culture. So I have to search a lot, and I have to find my own way to it. So when I read this, it really hit me in this really deep way. And I got to page 30, which was when my family is evicted. And I just was it tore me apart. I was just bawling my eyes out. And I was raised in a middle-class family. My parents were working class, and my father really bought the American lie and was so beautifully aspirational and wanted to provide a better life for me and my brother. I put better in quotation marks if you didn't know what those were. So what do I know about being evicted? But I did feel this Willy Loman-ish fear pervading the household. This what if it all falls away, and is this enough? That thing of what about a bigger house? What about a bigger thing? What about a bigger Mac? What about a bigger Big Mac? What about a bigger nuggets? You can get
it's the would you like fries with that? I don't need fries, but I want them.
Yeah.
I don't need them.
You can isn't it 100 chicken nuggets you can buy now in a thing?
The 100 nug challenge.
It's happened. It's happened. This is where we've got to. Bigger, more, you know, and like, wait, no, we had all the abundance in our culture is being held by this like Rupert Murdoch and Donald Trump, and he's saying we don't have any more. Get the foreigners out of the country. We don't have any more, while he's hoarding his billions of dollars. It's just insane. So all this stuff is in the culture. It's in me, and I'm just like, I don't know. What do I do? I'm an actor. Like, I'm not going to change the world. But I read the script, and I was like, well, this could be me doing my bit for the time being, and shedding light on a situation that makes me really, really sad and really angry, and makes me need to do something. So I act.
I mean, no, but it's you're doing what's available to you.
I'm being self-deprecating with the whole acting thing, but you know, and that's the other thing that the film talks about, is that not one person is going to change the world. It's not going to take a fucking not going to take a superhero. It's not going to come down and change everything. It's not going to be one man. It's going to be each and every one of us doing our extraordinary thing, whatever that happens to be, whether it's gardening, masonry, acting, Googling stuff. But it takes everyone to bring their gifts to the culture, and I think this is something that we've not been reminded of in a long time, and community, that idea of true community, and what that means.
And I think we were talking about this earlier, where it's just like we are a community that's constantly connected, but we are not necessarily like connected on a deeper level all the time.
No.
You know what your friends are doing because they posted about it. That doesn't mean you asked your friends what they're doing and how they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of it's like it has to be in your face sometimes, because we, like you said, we don't want to look people in the eye and feel that. So we sit and watch a movie instead, but then we go, oh man, like I have to feel all this now, and now what do I do with that?
Yeah.
And so, it's leading to a conversation where it's like, let's not forget about these things, because that's how they happen in the first place.
Yeah. And let's not be afraid of pain. Let's not be afraid of our personal pain, our collective pain. You know, what's happening with Black Lives Matters, Black Lives Matter, and with everything that's happening in the country with the race divide, the poverty divide, with the gay rights movement. These are all attempts to go, let's really look and deal with the woundedness in the culture that we've created. And only then will we stop rioting. And until then, we will riot peacefully, for the most part, thank God, beautifully. So yeah, it's, I don't know.
It's well said. Well, now I feel silly asking about the film details, but no. So one thing to me, I think we've talked about briefly, is this kind of, again, it's the wanting more. It's also this sense of temptation. I think Michael Shannon's character is this sense of temptation, where he's like, I'm going to prey upon the weak, and he plays a realtor in the film, and one of the people who did capitalize on this kind of crazy housing boom, and he still leads this like semi-glamorous life, and I think your character definitely kind of falls into that. So what was it like working with him on that?
Well, he's a powerful presence. So it was great. It was really challenging for me to play with him. You know, it's like I struggle to play ping pong with people who are not as good as me. I don't play very well, but when someone's better than me, I really like. I find things that I didn't know I could do, and so I love that. I love being pushed in that way. So of course he's this brilliant. That goes for Laura Dern, and Noah Lomax as well. You know, so doing that with Michael specifically was awesome, and the complexity of it, because no one's happy. He's not happy. The guy that has it all,
and then some.
is not, and then some, and wants more, is trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom of it with stuff. And as we all know, and I forget a lot of the time, is that stuff is not going to fill that void. Status, power, money, all the fame, the riches, that's the American dream stuff that really kind of gets in the way of the stuff that actually feeds us. it's McDonald's stuff. It's kind of making us sicker. And I think what Michael does so brilliantly is he expresses that in a very subtle way, and he gives a wink. He just kind of says he's asking to be saved himself. So if we can all find it in our hearts to somehow remember that Donald Trump is asking for saving from his own greed and insanity, then I think we can really rescue him from himself. But that's the thing. There's it's lost. I don't think the system as it stands is serving either party. Everyone's imprisoned in some way. You know, the 1% of the world are imprisoned in their gated communities with barbed wire fencing around it, just like those who are in actual penitentiaries are. You know, so yeah. But exploring that was really painful and difficult, and you know, thank God it was with these kind of great actors.
Well, there are two characters who actually kind of reject that vision.
Yeah.
In Laura and Noah's characters, like your family, they don't necessarily. They're satisfied to a degree with, you know, what the characters have.
Yeah.
And there's this wonderful moment where Noah, who plays your son, just rejects it all. He goes, he doesn't want that. He wants his home.
Because he can feel he has that untarnished spirit that knows, oh no, that's not what this is about. He doesn't even know it consciously. It's just, that doesn't feel good. This feels good. Like, just being together feels good. I don't care where we are, just as long whether we're in a motel, a house, the forest, homeless. I just want you here. And I just want, you know, real community and family and love.
And I think that's absolutely. But your character does a lot of things for his family. But do you think it's kind of for his family, but maybe sometimes at their expense, and also it's this kind of like he doesn't tell them a lot of things. He's not honest with them, which creates a divide.
Totally, shame. Yeah, there's a lot of shame in the behavior that my character is forced into in order to provide. But then the question arises: what is that person providing? He's definitely not providing a safe home. He's definitely not providing intimacy. He's definitely not providing a role model of compassion, empathy, and love. He's providing a bigger house and a bigger pool and less time with his dad. And yeah, no, it's interesting. It is beautiful that the mother and the son, the feminine and the kind of the innocent, the pure innocent in the story are the emotional touchstone, the kind of the ethical core is held in, of course, the woman, because that's just the way of the world, the feminine intelligence, and then this kind of pure, intelligent, this childlike vision of the world that just knows what's warm and knows what's cold and knows where he's meant to be. Yeah.
I think I told you I'd bring this up. There's a scene and a moment where it's this sense of shame, and he sinks so low and is willing to literally deal in shit to to do what he thinks he needs to do for his family. It's true. It's like literally there's poop.
Literally,
yeah.
True.
I wish I was kidding. But it's heartbreaking, and it was like really distressing to watch this person, but also. At that point, it's very inspiring to be like, you know what, this person isn't going to ask for a handout. They are going to do the grossest thing I've seen on film in a while in order to kind of build this honest life for themselves at that point. So what was that like for you, just kind of tapping into that moment? Because for me, that was a very like pivotal point.
Cool. I love that. What was that like for me?
You can also just say it was gross.
I think what you said is so accurate about he doesn't want handouts, and the majority of the families that I met while in Florida were totally willing to work. They were actually, in fact, desperate to work. They wanted to be employed. They were not loafers. They were not lazy. They were not looking for handouts. They were burning up inside because they weren't being given opportunity to even begin to be a man. They had been stripped of all dignity in that respect. So I think in that moment, there's real weird pride in it. That's why I experienced it was a real moment of showing up for yourself and saying, I will shovel shit. I will do anything in order to make sure the ones I love have protection and survive. And then if we get past survival, maybe we'll try and live a little as well. So yeah, no, that moment was actually a nice turning point for me in terms of filming, because I didn't expect it to be like that. I expected it to be pretty, but there's something vital about going into the shit. It's kind of the sadness joy thing. It's like I can't get to the joy unless I really go down. It's like Louis C.K. did something on a talk show I think it was with Conan, and it was about our smartphones. Did anyone see this? Yeah, and he's talking about the addiction he has to being connected, and how he's on the freeway and it's there's lots of traffic and he's bored and he gets that little tingle of deep grief. So he goes to his phone to try and see who's liked a picture of his dog or whatever, and just to kind of allay that feeling of grief. And then he caught himself doing it, and he pulls over onto the side of the road, and he just stops, and he lets himself be with that feeling. And the way he says it is hilarious, and I'm saying it in a very earnest and sincere way, so I'm sorry. So just go and look at at Louis C.K.'s version after this. And he just starts bawling. He just starts crying his eyes out. And it's this well of grief that he hadn't been in tune with for so long. And then he said he felt this genuine sense of pure joy, real joy, not the kind of joy that comes from someone liking a dog picture. So it's that. It was that for me. It was I just cleaned fucking shit. And now I get to go home and play with my son. That's what the feeling was.
I think it's kind of earning those emotions, earning the highs by going through the lows.
Singing for your supper, as they say. Yeah.
So we'll take audience questions in a moment if anyone wants to line up. What would you say was the most challenging part of this role? I mean, the whole thing itself is clearly a tough one, and you took on a big thing to tackle. But
yeah, the most challenging part, to be honest, I think the best part and the most challenging part was having had proper time with families who have been through it, and knowing the grief and pain of it so intimately, and then you go, oh boy, how am I going to represent this in a way that's authentic and truthful and doesn't compromise the experience of these people, these noble souls that have their dignity stripped away by the system we're in. So yeah, that was really it. It was the whole thing, really. I kind of woke up with that, pressure, beautiful pressure every day, because that pressure kind of provided meaning for me every day showing up.
And it kind of maybe a responsibility to kind of represent this as accurately. Would you say that's also the most rewarding part of this whole thing?
Funnily enough.
There we go.
The most difficult part is the most rewarding part, and the deepest pain is the highest joy, as far as I know.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
We'll turn it over to the audience.
Hi, I got to see a screening of your movie last week, and it was really great. There's a lot of emotional scenes. So, which scene do you think was the most challenging for you to film?
The eviction probably was, very difficult, and it was cool. I mean, I say cool. It was really rewarding to shoot the film, because Ramin Barani, the director, does a lot of work with non-actors for the most part, and I knew that he was going to be employing non-actors for a lot of the smaller roles in the sequences when I start evicting people. They were just regular people off the street, and some of whom had been through this very thing. So it was very emotionally visceral, and it was just really, really, added an element of reality and depth that I thought was really cool. So I kind of said, well, if you're going to hire non-actors, I need to be a non-actor as well. And a lot of it, that whole sequence was totally improvised. And Bobby Bukowski, the DP, kind of just followed us around with his camera. And so that was another really rewarding and challenging part, was keeping keeping the reality of the story alive, because we really didn't use the script all that much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, so thank you for coming. And
Thank you.
so my question is, you mentioned how it's important to recognize that there are these problems in our society, and you talked about how you visited these people. So I was wondering, how do you keep from feeling guilty, I guess, about having, the things that we do, especially us who work at Google. I know we have a lot of quirks.
Yeah.
And so how do you, stay in tune and have a recognition and appreciation for these problems without feeling really, really guilty about what you have yourself?
Yeah. Wow. How? Do you know how?
I don't. That's why I'm asking you.
Oh, I'm supposed to know how?
Or maybe some questions about or comments about how you deal with it.
Yeah, I just try and ignore it, and I just smoke a bunch of weed and just like fucking whatever. Fuck it. Fuck 'em. No, I feel guilty. I feel really guilty. I'm a privileged man, and I'm a white male that has happened to be able to make a living from what he loves to do. That's insane. That is, and I know that obviously all of us in this room feel a similar way to that. So yeah, that is the perfect question. How do you feel not guilty? You give yourself to things that are in service of the other, that are in service. You don't change the world. I mean you can try, but then you'll fail. But at least you'll do your part. So yeah, I guess the question is, what do you do with that feeling? It's not about, and because I think I will feel guilty. I will feel like I'm not doing enough. I will feel ashamed unless I'm actively putting that feeling into some type of service for my fellow man, some type of giving to, in whatever way I'm supposed to. Not in the way of, for me it's, I'm not Martin Luther King. I'm not Gandhi. I'm not Russell Brand. Not the Russell. Yeah. I admire what he's doing a lot, actually. I think he's doing his part. So I think the idea is we all find our parts. We all find what part we're called to play, and only we know what that is. So yeah, how do we do it? And that's a constant unfolding question and answering, and a questioning and an answering. But I know that I feel a little bit better and more peaceful when I know I've given to something meaningful.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Hi, again, thank you for coming and speaking with us. Okay, my question was similar to hers, but then she asked that question. Okay, so I read that 99 Homes is your first film as a producer as well as an actor. I was wondering, how is that experience? Did you find you were able to have a greater impact on the mission of this movie because you were a producer as opposed to an actor?
I hope so. I definitely love the filmmaking process, and I definitely feel inclined towards more control, because who doesn't like control, right? So I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I don't know how I impacted the film, but I know that it felt good to be in the conversation constantly with the filmmaker and with the crew, and felt a sense of more ownership over what I'm doing. So I think as an actor, you kind of come in, you do your part, and then you leave. And I don't like that feeling. It's very, very different in theatre than in film, because in theatre, the actors are the community that's created, whereas in film, the crew are the community. So I kind of miss that a lot when I'm doing film. But yeah, it was great, and I hope to keep doing it, because I've had experiences with powerlessness in what in the work I've done, and it hasn't felt all that good. I really like being involved from the ground up. So yeah, it felt really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming. I saw the movie and I really enjoyed it. I was wondering, so in the movie it seemed like there was a lot of emphasis put on the man's perspective as like breadwinner for the family.
Yeah.
And in general, all of the cases that we saw more in depth, it was the man who was trying to provide for the family and get them out of this situation. And I was wondering how, when you visited people in Florida, if that was generally the case for what you were seeing, or if there were some women who were trying to provide for their families, and did that affect at all the representation of the character of your mother?
Such a good question. Thank you for it. This is by no means a fair sample that I was engaged with, but in the families I met, it was the male that was the breadwinner for the most part, and there were a couple of instances where that wasn't true. I really love that question, and there is a part of the story of 99 Homes where, Laura Dern's character, my mother, is another source of income with her hair stuff. I'm afraid that it's a misrepresentation. Now that you ask this, I'm afraid that there's not a misrepresentation, but a more limited representation that maybe we could have done. I really don't know. I have to think about that, but I really thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Ultimately, it's still a film, and it is a representation. If the story that needed to be told needed to be this family story to get this film across, like, that's what it's going to be. But one kind of interesting part of it to me was that it was a single father. Which is an entirely different dynamic that you don't always see. A lot of times you see, it's a single mother and stuff like that. But this was like you know.
Obviously, my mother was, in the film, Laura's character was the breadwinner and the single mother. And then that, what I can speak to is, it's definitely inherent in me, this old idea, and I don't know whether this is learned behavior or inbred, kind of archetypal of that masculine energy. I say masculine energy that lives in men and women, as feminine energy lives in both. I know for me as a man, and the majority of the men I speak to and that I know intimately, there is this pressure, self-inflicted, societally inflicted, culturally inflicted, that says, if you're not providing the money, the shelter, the food, then you're not a man. That's a fallacy. Like, I know that on a very deep, instinctive level that is a fallacy. That has no bearing on manhood. And I think one of the things that I was excited to reflect was that pressure incarnate, that pressure embodied in the males in our culture, and maybe how that's lost its way a bit and gone a little crazy, a little kind of has become this beast. And I know growing up, my father felt that if he wasn't providing, he was, not matching up. And all the men I spoke to in Florida is the same thing. I really don't know why it's ended up that way, but I'm really interested in your question. Can you repeat your question again, just in case I have missed something?
I think you answered it pretty well, but I was just asking if the representation that men are generally the ones providing for their families in these cases and trying to get themselves out of these situations of eviction.
Right.
If that was representative of the cases that you saw and met with in Florida, and if that played into at all the character of your mother and how she played that part.
Right. Thank you for repeating it. And as I say, that was my experience. It doesn't mean that is the general experience of these families who are going through this specific thing. I will add to that what Laura Dern brought to this role, a lot of it was unfortunately not totally in the film. And that's a heartbreak for the filmmaker, I know, because Laura is one of the greatest actors out there, and what she brought was all this complexity and depth, and so there are some elements that are missing from the story, and I'm so happy that you picked up on that, because that's what I hear you saying, because it was in there, it's in there, it was there in the experience, and there's this phrase, kill your darlings, that, and it's applicable here to what the filmmaker has to do, and ultimately, you know, he wanted to focus more on this tension relationship between the realtor and the evictee. So yes, bummer, and cool. I'm really glad that you were like, where, because that's how I feel. I'm like, where is she? What's she up to? What's she doing? And I love where that conversation is going as well. And again, I think of that Nina Simone song, Mississippi Goddamn, and the slowness of change, and how frustratingly and angeringly slow change is in the feminist movement, in all the progressive movements that need acceleration, that need the fire. So thank you, and
Thank you very much.
I'm with you. This is what a feminist looks like. Is that what I'm supposed? Is that the right
I think
terminology?
that is the right term.
Very good.
So I think my last question to you is, this was a wonderful addition to your body of work, and you've done such awesome stage work. Is there anything, like, what's up next for you? What do you want to tackle next?
This is where my ego gets a little excited to talk, and I get worried about that, because the ego is tricky.
Generally, what's up next? Not necessarily anything specific.
Yeah, no. I did a movie recently. I'm going to do another movie, and then I'll do a play.
All right.
How's that?
Great. It's the perfect answer.
I have to say sorry, ego. Sorry, I'm not gonna give you the little bone that you want. You want to chew on.
Well, this was a wonderful film, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.